This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and here's one of the more exciting laptop releases of 2018 so far. This is the Dell XPS 15 2-in-1. What if your XPS 15 could do this? What if it had a touchscreen? What if it had a pen? We're going to look at it now. All right, other than the fact that the Dell XPS 15 is already a very popular high-end Ultrabook, what's so special about this one? The 2-in-1 feature. It's nice. It used to be really hard to find a 15-inch 2-in-1. Now, not so hard anymore. This being one of them. Yes, it supports pen. In fact, Dell's new pen, we'll get into that a little bit later because that in itself can be confusing. Dell has gone through so many pens. So inside here we have the new Intel Kaby Lake G CPU, which is classified as an 8th generation CPU. I know I'm going to have to do a 5 minutes on tech just about these CPUs now that Intel is doing because it's getting a little bit confusing. Some of the 8th gen CPUs are called Kaby Lake R or Kaby Lake G. Others are called Coffee Lake for the 45-watt workstation and gaming laptop CPUs. This one is a new thing. Intel actually partnered up with AMD to do, you know how AMD has their integrated APU graphics? It's sort of a more powerful graphics processor that's integrated with the CPU, and now they're doing the same thing with Intel. So basically what you have here is a 65-watt package total for the graphics and for the CPU. And you've got a CPU that's almost as powerful as an Intel Core i7-7700HQ, which would be the Core i7 you could get on a regular Dell XPS 15 or a gaming laptop. And you've got this new AMD Radeon RX Vega MGL, yes, really, all those letters, graphics in here, which is about as powerful as the NVIDIA GTX 1050 to 1050 Ti. It's somewhere in the middle. So that's a lot of horsepower for a convertible, right? In fact, HP is going to be the only other direct competitor with the HP Spectre X360 15-inch, the latest version of that we're going to be reviewing very shortly soon. And yes, we will smack these two down. Same architecture there, a different approach in a lot of ways. So that's going to be very interesting. Anyway, so why do this? Dell did the same thing with the XPS 13. They went ahead and they made a 2-in-1 version. And it was kind of, I found a little disappointing. It was a nice laptop, but it cost considerably more than the already expensive XPS 13. And it had the Intel Core M CPU, so it was a lot less powerful. So with the 15-inch, they're trying to get more power inside. With this new Intel architecture plus AMD, they've largely done that. It's not quite as powerful as an XPS 15, the 9560, the regular XPS 15, but it's getting close enough and at the same time running cooler that this is pretty exciting stuff. Now, the pricing is going to be a little bit more expensive than the XPS 15, and Dell always has a low starting price because that's a pretty low-end configuration there. But for $12.99, you can get this with a Core i5-8305G CPU, new G-series CPU, see, and 8 gigs of DDR4 2400 megahertz RAM, 128 gig PCIe NVMe SSD, and a full HD display. So that's not too bad a configuration. No matter what, you're going to get that same AMD Radeon. It's the RX Vega MGL. Again, there's no GH option here for these, which would be an even more powerful one. So, and you've got Intel UHD 630 graphics. It's still switchable graphics, just like you would have with a more traditional dedicated GPU that's on a separate die right there. So that's not too bad. Now, ours is the high-end model here. So we have the Core i7-8705G in here, obviously the same graphics that we talked about, 16 gigs of DDR4 RAM, 256 gig SSD, and the lovely 4K display at a painful $2,200. So it's starting to approach Surface Book 2 pricing at this point, and that's another one that's in some ways a competitor to this. So if you're interested in seeing a smackdown also between this and the Surface Book 2 15-inch, give a shout out in the comments. You can make that happen as well. So just like the XPS 15 non-convertible, the pre-existing model, you have your choice of a full HD or a 4K display. But there are some differences here in those displays. First off, no matter what, it's going to be touch, it's going to be glossy, and it's going to support Dell's new Active Pen with tilt, this one right here, which is sold separately for $99. Dell's most expensive pen yet. Now it's costing about as much as the Surface Pro latest generation pen and HP's Tilt pen. They all get more expensive as they add some more features here. So that's different, and also the color. The color accuracy is improved. We'll get into that in a little bit. In terms of the casing and the design language, it looks a lot like the XPS 15, and that's not a bad thing at all. So you've got that CNC aluminum machined casing here. You've got the carbon fiber palm rest. This very rigid casing on here, Gorilla Glass 4 on the display. Now the bad thing is this is a lot like the Dell XPS 9370, the 13-inch. versus the 9360. I just love Dell numbers. You Dell people will remember all these, but everybody won't. There's two versions of the XPS 13. The more traditional one, and they came out with one that's a slight bit tweaked faster, gets a little bit thinner, and loses all the legacy ports. Guess what? This one is 16 millimeters thick, so it's 1 millimeter thinner than your XPS 15 non-convertible, and gone are most all of your legacy ports. So yes, you have two Thunderbolt 3 full 4-lane, and you've got those on one side. Then you have two USB-C Gen 1 on the other side. No USB-A ports. There is a dongle adapter, at least in the box. You have a micro SD card slot, and you have a headphone jack. So there's no Ethernet, there's no USB-A ports, there's no HDMI, there's no DisplayPort. You can accomplish those things through dongle adapters, be it either USB-C or with docks, either USB-C or Thunderbolt 3. It's kind of like MacBook Pro dongle hell come to Dell. So all models have their RAM soldered on board. That means you can't upgrade it yourself. Currently they're offering either 8 or 16 gigs of RAM with this. There's no mention right now of 32 gigs. Sorry, power users. That is what it is. Wi-Fi is killer. Dell loves killer Wi-Fi. They've been using it for Alienware for a while. They're doing it here too. Killer 1435. Wireless AC with Bluetooth. That's not the most powerful killer card or the newest one, but it's not a bad card. It too, however, is soldered onto the motherboard, so you can't upgrade or change that later. So you killer haters out there, keep that in mind. I like killer. The performance on it is just absolutely fine. So biometrics, of course, what fashionable laptop wouldn't have dual-in biometrics? We have a fingerprint scanner built into the power button on the deck of the laptop, and we have a chin cam below the display. That's still the price we pay for this Infinity Edge, like no bezel design here, and a Windows Hello IR camera. So let's talk performance, because obviously that's of great interest here. We have a whole new CPU platform with the system-on-chip AMD Radeon graphics. How does it do? Well, the CPU is the easier one to talk about, so let's start there. It's a lot like a Core i7, their 7700HQ, like I said, which is your usual quad-core 45 watt sort of laptop CPU for mobile workstations and gaming laptops. Clearly, it's not always going to be getting all that much of the wattage, though, because the whole package is only 65 watts. So that's for the fairly powerful GPU in here, so it can be pulling a lot of power. So if you're gaming, for example, the GPU is going to be drawing more power, and the CPU is going to get some less of that power. The good news is that keeps the CPU running cooler. The bad news is, well, it's not going to be necessarily quite as powerful as a comparable gaming laptop, but it's something that is a 16 millimeter thin business chic looking convertible, that's okay. So while Intel 8th generation Coffee Lake CPUs are moving up to 6 cores now, this one stays at 4 cores, which isn't too shabby, and it's still more powerful than it would be, say, for a Ultrabook CPU. Even the Surface Book 2, which is still running on 15-watt Ultrabook CPUs. In fact, take a look at this handbrake encoding graph that we have right here, and you can see that, well, it does do better than the Surface Book 2 when it comes to something that's purely CPU dependent, that video encoding that's going on there, but not quite as fast as the Core i7, their 7700HQ still yet, but it's in between, and it's closer to that. And then, of course, the 6 cores are going to blow them all away in the latest Coffee Lakes. The AMD graphics that's inside of here, this is kind of exciting because AMD has done their APUs with their own CPUs, which is their system-on-chip integrated graphics kind of solution here, and it's not been that impressive or that powerful. And then they have in laptops their kind of lower end dedicated graphics, like we saw in the Samsung Notebook 9 Pro family and even the 15-inch MacBook Pros. You got the Radeon 540, 550 series graphics. They're okay. They're nothing to write home about. This one here actually finally really competes with the entry level of NVIDIA's gaming GPUs, which is nice to see. Like I said, on benchmarks, this is right between a GTX 1050 and a 1050 Ti, and those are the entry-level gaming GPUs. Those are not certified for VR. You can try to push it if you want, and it might work. The frame rates may make you a little sick, though, if it doesn't quite work. I mean, this is a 15-inch business sort of convertible. It really isn't something that you're going to be buying primarily for gaming. That said, in the cases when games did run correctly, I'll tell you what I mean by that in a minute, they ran just as well as on the Asus ROG Strix Scar that we just reviewed, the GL703GE, which is pretty impressive with the GTX 1050 Ti and a 6-core CPU. That's nice stuff there. The graphics really are doing well, and we didn't see any GPU temperatures rising over 74 centigrade, which is pretty darn acceptable. The core temperatures It varies a lot. I saw it once or twice during benchmarks where the machine actually let the core temperatures go up to around 91 centigrade, 100 is max allowable. 91's a little hot, a little worrisome, but most of the time the system seems to be keeping the throttling the cores down to the point where they only go into the low 80s. In fact, I saw it sometimes do a thermal throttle at 82 centigrade, which is a little overly conservative. But then this is a thin machine. It does have 2 fans inside, but not a whole lot of room for dissipation. They did add another heat pipe compared to the XPS 15, so you have 3 heat pipes inside. They have more blades on the fan. They have Gore-Tex, basically to insulate you from the machine, so the metal on the bottom doesn't get so hot. So they're doing a lot of thermal tricks there, in addition to some throttling that's going on. The upshot and the good part of that is that this does not get really burning hot to the touch. You can see the FLIR temperature readings that we got here, and that was after really pushing it hard and playing Battlefield 1 for half an hour. Normally it's not even going to get that hot. It'll get toasty, but it's not going to burn you, that sort of thing. And the core temperatures are certainly acceptable. The fans are likewise not annoying, not egregious. You will hear them, and it sounds like a good volume of air is being moved, but it's not going to drown out the TV or something like that. If somebody's watching TV in the same room, unless you're playing Battlefield 1, then it just might a little bit, but that's fair at that point. So they did a good job here with thermals, let's put it that way. All right, let's talk about AMD graphics drivers. Yeah, they've been having a rocky time of it lately, I have to say, with several products that have come out, and this is no exception. Now, Intel is actually managing the release, since this is a cooperative venture where Intel is integrating their graphics in, so they'll be in charge of the release schedule. You can install AMD drivers separately from AMD's website if you want, but not the full Catalyst experience here, though the control panel you get with Intel looks a lot like AMD's Catalyst software. Anyway, some things ran really well, you know, as some games will, some games won't. Fallout 4 surprisingly ran pretty well, and I say surprisingly because Fallout 4 is often glitchy with various graphics cards, so that was great. Battlefield 1 ran very well, very smoothly. Far Cry 5, about 7 frames per second. Oh my goodness, really, yeah. That's at 1080p and at low graphics settings. I even tried dropping it down to 1366 by 768 resolution. No, so clearly it's a problem with the graphics drivers going on there. Final Fantasy 15, not so much. But, you know, this is really a machine whose graphics level and whose design is not supposed to be your main gaming laptop. But this is something that is designed to handle something like Fortnite and PUBG, those somewhat less demanding games, even Overwatch. So there you have it. But I would expect that this is going to be a kind of work in progress. And if you want to hit the ground running with a lot of games right away, this might not be the machine for you, because who knows if and when these driver glitches will get worked out. So let's talk about the keyboard. Boy, is it different. Dell's maglev, like magnetic lever keyboard, it's somewhere in between the XPS 13 and the 15-inch MacBook Pro in terms of tactile feel and travel. Closer to the MacBook Pro, unfortunately, when it comes to travel. 0.7 millimeters. Something like the HP Spectre X360 is 1.5 millimeters. So you get the idea there. You're not getting a lot of travel, but they did something mechanically brilliant here with this magnetic lever thing. It feels very clicky and very tactile. It's still miserably low travel, and if you don't like really excruciatingly low travel laptops, you might not like this either, but the clickiness and the tactile nature of it is just fantastic. You know, I wish Apple would have done something like that, because at least the keys do feel like they're doing something when you press down on them. So that's a good part of that. They're backlit in white, but the bad part is, boy, almost no travel. This is what the price we pay for 1 millimeter less thickness, I guess, compared to a regular XPS 15, which in and of itself never had a super high travel keyboard. But Trackpad is the same as with every other XPS we've seen recently, and that's a Microsoft Precision trackpad. Oh, when it comes to that keyboard, will dust wreak havoc on it, like with the MacBook Pros, where you get a little bit of dust under the keys and they don't register anymore? I'm hoping not. Hopefully the magnetic nature of it, the magnetic actuation, is going to help with that, so there's going to be more than just the mechanical slight bit of pressure required. But we'll find out, won't we? Speakers on this, you've got your usual Waves Max audio software. These are 2 1-watt speakers on here, and the volume is quite good. It's plenty loud, which is something usually you can't say about an HP Spectre. They're not very loud, but there's just about no bass here, so it sounds pretty thin and pretty tinny. If you're playing first-person shooters, a lot of shooting, the shots are going to sound pretty thin and weak. And if you like hip hop or anything with a lot of bass in it, not so much. Yeah. All right, let's talk about the display, the yummy, yummy part right here. We have the higher end option, the 4K display, which is about $400 more and will eat your battery life up faster than the 1080p, as is the way with all Dell XPS laptops for the past 3 years or more. The 4K display is a sharp IGZO panel, and boy, the color gamut, it's 98% of Adobe RGB. Wow, and almost full NTSC coverage, which is what a good TV should cover. So you've got wide gamut here, and the good news is it's improved even from the most recent generation XPS 15 non-convertible that we reviewed. The color accuracy has always been the problem here with these. And now the color accuracy, you can see the graph, it's still not super duper, but it's calibratable, it's not egregious. It no longer looks blown out and cartoony. It looks quite nice. To eyeball this after calibration, I would say I could use this for professional photo and video editing. It's sharp, the contrast is high on it. This is one of the nicest displays I have seen on a laptop. It is good. Competes definitely with Surface Book 2, which doesn't even quite have this gamut, and with the 15-inch MacBook Pro. Good job from Dell here. Now, like I said, that is going to affect your battery life, though. So, and also, if you want to use it for gaming, you know how gaming is. It's always a little bit of a pain to drop down the 1080p gaming resolution from 4K. Some games are a little wicky-wacky, so you might want just the full HD, save some money, and not have to fight so much with games. But battery life-wise, well, obviously, we have the 4K display with the Core i7 here, so this is going to be the most power-hungry model. Now, the difference between the Core i5 and i7 doesn't really make that much of a difference for power consumption, so it's pretty much about the display here. And I've been managing 6 to 7 hours of light to moderate productivity work and streaming video at 140 nits of brightness, which is not really great. You know, Dell claims up to 15 hours for the full HD model, which I don't know. So far, I don't think any reviewer has seen that, but you might get 8 or 9 at least there, which is, you know, more acceptable. It's the price we pay for this beautiful display, unfortunately, that gets extremely bright as well. So you've got a 75 watt-hour battery in there, and the XPS 15 non-convertible had a 97 watt-hour battery. So you're dropping battery capacity, but because of the power frugality of this platform, it's not that different from the XPS 15, to be honest, with the corresponding display resolution taken into account there. They've done a pretty good job with the heat and with the power consumption there. You get a 130 watt charger, which is plenty enough, again, because this is a 65 watt TDP product, plus you get powering the display and the drives and the other stuff, so that part's fine. So last but not least, there's the pen. Woohoo! It's really hard to find something that supports pen and is powerful and has good graphics. Surface Book 2 15-inch and even the 13.5-inch would be two of your other options. Obviously, the HP Spectre X360 that's coming out. Not a huge number of these guys are as powerful as this. So how does it do? Well, this has the new Wacom AES 2.0 digitizer. Still 4096 level of pressure sensitivity, but now they've added tilt support. But just like Surface Pro 2017 and Surface Book 2, latest generation with the new Surface Pro Pen, yeah, the tilt is a little hard to get support for in applications. For the built-in sketching app that's in Windows 10, that works. That always works, you know. That's the funny thing about it. Whether it's N-Trig or Wacom AES, if you got tilt support, it's going to work. But Photoshop says no digitizer supporting tilt is available when I try to actually go ahead and set up one of my brushes with tilt on that. Is it coming? I hope so. How soon? Goodness only knows. You can't install Wacom Feel It drivers either. It says no compatible hardware. So they're doing something new here, and there's no control panel or anything like that, really, to do much of anything with the pen. That said, it feels nice, as usual with Wacom AES. There's like no parallax on this. The pressure curves are very nice on it. No need to press very hard. You got good initial activation force going on here. And the tilt certainly works nicely in the Windows Sketching app, but that won't get you very far, will it? So it's a pleasant enough experience, certainly for pen users, whether you're doing this for note-taking or for art. And the palm rejection works fairly well. In fact, I think a little better than older Wacom AES solutions and better than N-Trig still use on the HP Spectre and the Surface Pro line. So typical of the XPSs, first you unscrew these little Torx T5 screws here from around the edge, and they're visible, and then you pry off the cover, and it's be careful, the clips are tight, and there's a lot of sharp edges over here. I don't know if you can see, but it cut right through my fingernail, right through nail polish even. This is just devilish right here, how sharp this is, and it's going to want to clamp back down on you, so be careful. Once you do get inside, there's not a lot that you can upgrade anyway. Yeah, here's a 75 watt-hour battery. That's a biggie. Your stereo speakers are right here. Here's the thing you can upgrade. It's got a sticky little, this is heat goo right here, basically, heat tape on it. So this is your M.2 SSD. Ours is an SK Hynix 512 gig PCIe NVMe SSD, and you can put your goo right back on again like that. It's flexible, reusable goo. 2 fans here, moderate in size, 3 big copper heat pipes. That is good to see here. And the Wi-Fi card is soldered onto the motherboard. The RAM is soldered onto the motherboard, so you can't upgrade either of those. The Wi-Fi card, I don't think most people care about that much. It's a killer card. It's 1435 AC. It's not a bad card. So RAM, order it with the amount that you want because you'll be stuck with that. And in case you're wondering what's under this cover, you can pry it up carefully right here, and there is our heatsink for our combo AMD GPU plus Intel CPU right here. So these are the screws that hold down the heatsink. It's an interesting design here with the copper pipes going right over what looks like an alloy heatsink over here that they've done a lot of work custom designing, clearly. So that's the Dell XPS 15 2-in-1 model 9575, and it joins the rare company of products like the Surface Book 2, the Lenovo Yoga 720 15-inch, and of course the HP Spectre X360 15-inch, which will be a direct competitor for this for those of you who want something that is a 15-inch convertible tablet with pen support. The new architecture that Intel has going with Kaby Lake G and AMD is interesting. When it performs really well. When it doesn't, it doesn't. And, you know, AMD and their drivers and the game optimization, like I said, I wouldn't count on this one if gaming is your primary thing. But I don't think it probably will be for most of you. This is still basically a productivity business convertible, something for content creators. And as that, it excels. It does really well. The Wacom AES 2.0 pen is largely the same as last gen AES, but you got tilt support in some applications. And it keeps getting a little better and a little better with those pressure curves too. The display on this, wow, if you get the 4K display, you will be so happy. The keyboard, yes, it's low travel, yes, it's weird, but at the same time, it's pretty darn brilliant. So overall, Dell has done a nice job. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more cool tech videos, and thumbs up if you like this vid.